Hi, everyone. Welcome to TMJ. I'm Michael Baltimore. This is Jeffrey Conklin. Jeff, welcome to your first show.
Well, thank you, Mike.
TMJ.
Yes, it
now,
is.
you know, we've done this show before, but it's been called TMT. And that was Talk with Mike and Tom, and now it's Talk with Mike and Jeff. Okay? But we have to say something about this very early on, guys, because TMJ also stands for some other things as well. We might know, maybe a dental problem, maybe some things like that. But this is all about talk. And
It's
so,
not a dental show?
not a dental
Not a
show
dental
at this
show.
particular time. We hope those people kind of understand that. But we do have a little bit of a laugh with the TMJ notion as a title to this show. First of all, I just want to say that this is a conversation show. This is about what we're interested in, the kind of things that we think maybe other people might be interested in. Sometimes it's about technology. Sometimes it's about education, online learning, a little bit of everything that comes in here. So we hope you will just kind of stay with us for a little while as we have a conversation today about some issues in technology. Now, Jeff, you've been reading a book. We want to talk a little bit about that and go ahead and get our show started for today.
Okay.
What do you think?
All right. Well, you know, the book I've been reading is called Program or Be Programmed, and it's a book by Douglas Rushkin. And
Okay.
what he's talking about there is some of the biases of the technology and the digital age.
So got a subtitle called 10 Commands for a Digital Age.
Right. In fact, he spells out very clearly with each chapter,
Right.
each of the commands, and then he
Okay.
takes it from there, explains it further. And, yeah.
You know, we've had these conversations before about how technology is sort of changing our lives, and we've done on TMT not long ago. We did this a book review about how technology and how the internet is actually changing our brains,
Yes,
and
yes.
restructuring our brains. And at that particular time in our conversation, it was this notion that we scan information, that we're not doing the deep thinking, the long focused thinking and reading that we used to do, and we're just sort of skimming information very quickly, very in a very rushed way, and moving to the next. And so we're a little bit on the ADHD side
Right.
of things, but you know there is this notion that somehow technology is pushing us in certain directions, and his book. Program or be programmed
Right.
sounds like a control issue. Is this technology really kind of controlling our lives now?
Well, and that's exactly what he's saying. It is controlling our lives. And if you cannot program, someone is making choices for you, that you're giving up your freedom.
Okay, so we have to take charge of our lives and really be programmers
Well,
of our lives.
and that's exactly what Rushkin's saying. He's saying you don't really use your computer. You use somebody else's program.
Oh, okay.
And
So
so
we
if you
didn't
can-
write the programs. We didn't
That's right.
write the software program, those, all that code in the program.
He said
but
it's
we're
somebody else's
dependent
code.
on it.
That's right.
Oh, my goodness. Okay, all
But
right.
he's
That makes
saying you
sense.
don't necessarily have to program your own machine, but you have to understand that you can and what's involved with that code and how that's really controlling.
Well, it's not just about computers, though. It's about those digital phones,
Well, he
those
even gets
smartphones,
into the phone, yes,
all of those
yes.
things that we have that seem to have us connected all the time.
Well, and he talks about that in his first command. He says, do not always be on.
Okay.
And he talks about how when you have the cell phone and you always have that, and you have your iPads and you have your laptops and you're always on, and you miss a lot of life. Instead, what you do is you're always hooked up, waiting for the next piece of information.
Well, you know, we've talked in here with several folks on the air about the notion that you check your email at the office, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the evening. The whistle blows, you go home.
Right.
You check your email when
As
you
soon
get
as you
home.
get there.
As soon as you
Right,
get there,
yeah.
you're checking your email.
Something may have happened.
You wake
in
up in
that
the morning, and
15
so
minutes.
you know, technology originally, if I'm not mistaken, the premise was that we were going to have more free time. We were going to be able to have more leisure time, and that technology was really going to be a helpful part of our lives.
That
And
you
now
weren't going
it's
to be a slave to it.
a slave to it, and it
Yes,
almost sounds
yes.
like if we're programmed, then we may be moving in that direction, according to this
Well, he's even
Douglas Rushkin.
He's even going further, saying that you're giving up your freedom of choice.
Okay.
That you only have two decisions you can make: take it or leave it.
Right.
Yes or no.
Right.
0 or 1.
Right. Just like many computer programs,
and he
the
said
0,
they're
1.
all
Yes.
programmed that way. He said even use of the mouse is that way, that you're locked into the whole binary thing. And he's
Okay.
saying one choice we always forget is we can just say no. And
Okay.
we don't have to choose.
Right, we can
Right.
say no. Now, but this in terms of the place, I know that's one of the second ideas here and it could tell us about that one. This second command.
The second one is distance, live in person.
Okay.
And what he's talking about is you got to step away from the machine and live life. And that you've got to do some real things. And you can't rely totally on the technology. And whether it's Facebook or whether it's some other social media, that sometimes you have to interact with people.
Okay.
He felt that was a very important
Well,
part.
yeah, it's interesting that people are really connected with others through the internet only, and
Right.
people find personal relationships with others as they sit at a computer screen, someone else around the world, or even close by, but also around the world that's on their computer screen. Of course, we've heard about romantic relationships blossoming from the internet. You might marry that person, maybe.
Yes, indeed, I did. So
Okay,
that's where
there
I
you
found
go.
her. Was
All right, that was good. Nice of you to bring that
but
up.
what he
All
was
right.
also talking about is the whole idea is we no longer purchase local. We're not using our local merchants. Instead, we go out online and we can purchase anywhere in the country or anywhere in the world.
Okay.
And we forget about those local merchants. We are starting to lose connection with our own community. Another example would be reading the newspaper.
Right.
We don't read our own paper in our own town. Instead, we read the New York Times.
Right.
Or we go out and read the Detroit Free Press or
Right.
whatever.
Okay.
And he's saying we're losing that connection with our community.
Well, there is a movement. I'm sure that you probably heard about. I mean, we have our crew here in the studio are vegetarians,
Right,
and
right.
they talk about buying local. That the crops, the food, and there's a big movement of being more organic, but also
yes.
buying local.
That's a big
because supporting the local economy and so forth, plus the benefits of those kinds of products out there.
And when you talk about that buying local movement, there's that whole community farm type of thing,
Right.
where people buy in and do that. And that, again, is a reconnect. But it's like you want a pair of shoes, so you got to go out on the web and you find a pair of shoes and buy them from a place in Ohio.
Oh,
Or
exactly.
you buy, and so we
Yeah,
don't.
guilty as charged, by the way. I do that all the time. I'm buying stuff. I'm a comparison shopper.
Of course.
Because I may get it, and the issue is always when you're buying online, how much is the shipping? So, but
Did
if you
you
can get
save?
if you get the product at the right price plus the shipping, it's just the easier thing to do, to hit the button on the computer and buy that product.
I don't know if you noticed, but yesterday Borders filed Chapter 11, Borders Bookstores.
Oh, is that
Yes,
right?
and
No, I didn't see
they
that.
announced they're closing 200 stores nationwide.
Wow.
They were ones that didn't keep up. They were
Okay.
ones that didn't come in with an e-reader.
Right.
They were ones that didn't have the web presence like Amazon.
Okay.
And they're now paying the price.
So so this Rushkoff guy is saying that we're being forced into this out of our local community to the big corporations who are able to survive in this kind of economy.
Yes.
And also the Walmarts, a notion where they move into the community and move and crush the small family-owned operations
Yes.
and so forth that happens in there. And so that, but we're being controlled. We're programmed because we want to, as a consumer, we want to buy it cheaper, faster, and the brand
Have
that we
more
want,
choices.
and have more
and-
choices
yes.
and so forth.
And we all are thinking that way. And so what he's basically saying is you're hurting yourself. You're hurting your own community when you're doing that.
Wow.
Yeah, I think
Well, he's got a lot of tenants here. Now, he has 10 altogether.
yes,
So
yes.
what's another one that he's brought
another
up
one
here?
that I think is important is complexity.
Okay.
You're never completely right. And what he was talking about is
Yeah.
when you do a search for information, you can always find anti-information.
Right.
You can find, you
Right,
think you
the
found a
opposite.
truth,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
instead somebody else has that anti-truth. So,
Right,
and I
okay.
thought that was an important point.
So every
it's like the-
reaction is an equal and opposite
Well,
reaction.
It's like if you go out to Wikipedia,
Right.
you can change it.
Right.
And
Let's
when you
change the definition of
Yes.
this situation
And
by typing it in.
and that's one of the problems you've got. And he's saying that's a real problem with us going out searching for information. He also says that knowledge is becoming quite liquid. That
Right.
you don't retain a lot of knowledge because you can go out and find it again. You
Right.
Go out and do a search.
Right. Well, and we're doing searches back to the notion that we talked about. This was David Carr who wrote the book on his Google making it stupid.
Right, right.
And those notions. And so the idea that we're skimming information, we don't retain that information.
have
We're
to.
not keeping it. We don't have to.
Yes.
In a sense.
You don't have to buy the book. You just go out and you do the search, and there
Right.
it is. And we do it here in the studio.
Oh,
You
yeah.
need a clip?
No,
need a
we
little
can't do it. We
background
don't do it in the studio.
Well,
What? What happens? All right, yeah, I guess you're right. That's a good point. So we're gathering this information. You can find opposition to that piece of information, if
sure.
you will.
Sure.
We don't know really what is the right answer, if there is a right answer. It seems
Well,
to be fleeting in
The
some
way
way.
he said it is, instead of looking for that big truth, we find the big truth with a capital T. Instead, we find lots of little truths.
Right.
You know, and
Okay.
it's like the last time you got sick.
Right.
Before you went to the doctor, you looked it up on the web to decide
Right.
what was the matter with you.
Right.
You know, and that's what he's saying we're doing a lot of. So, you know, it makes it pretty complex, and it's never completely right. Another issue he
Okay.
talks about is scale.
All
One
right.
size does not fit all. Everything is not scalable. In other words,
Okay.
you can't
Okay.
take your little neighborhood shop, and next thing you know, they have a chain of stores, and next thing you know, they have, you know, a presence in several states. And he's saying some things need to stay small.
Okay.
Not everything needs to be global. But we all
Right.
have this mindset that if you go into business, you should start looking at the global markets.
Right.
You
Right.
know, that you
yes.
should be able to scale up to that.
Always scale up.
Yes.
Always bigger and better.
Everything.
Bigger is better in
Yes,
some ways.
yes, that whole way
well,
of
that
thinking.
certainly has gotten us in trouble in terms of our food and consumption of food and so forth. The big gulp and the bigger gulp and so forth that they have out there.
The
So
2-gallon jug.
yeah, I mean, it's just ridiculous. All you can eat kind of thing. So economy of scale. This
Okay.
notion that is that sometimes we don't need bigger.
Right.
And
right.
we have
right.
to have some choices, you said before, on this.
Mhm.
All right, that's a very interesting one. What's another one? that we
Another
talk
one is
about?
identity. Be yourself. He says it's
Okay.
liberating. One of the problems
Wow.
right now when we're using social media is you don't have to be yourself.
Okay.
You mentioned earlier before we went on talking about you created an avatar and taught a class.
Right.
You know,
Absolutely.
and you didn't have to call it Michael Baltimore.
Second Life.
Right.
I had a nickname. You
Yes,
didn't know who
yes,
that name was.
yes.
Okay.
And
So-
he's saying if you're really going to use the web, you should be able to be who you are.
okay.
You know, you don't need to have that alter ego.
All right.
You know.
So this idea of being genuine, being authentic, that we talk about in counseling so much.
Yes.
The notion of really kind of finding yourself, your true self,
Mm-hmm.
and working from there, as opposed to reshaping ourselves into something that will fit in other circumstances because of the circumstances. So, all right.
And that goes back to something you said earlier about the whole relationship thing. You know,
Right.
you create a new persona and meet some new people, right?
Right, right. So we have power ourselves in our true self. There's power in that.
Yes,
and
there
we
is.
tend to
Yeah.
overlook it. So that's one of his commands from this
Yes. Mm-hmm.
digital age. All right, that's number 6, I think, in the list.
That
All
was.
right, so what's next?
Number 7, social. Do not sell your friends.
Wait a minute. I'm sorry, I missed that. Would you run that by me again?
Okay, it's
Gotta
social.
know.
Do not sell your friends. What he talks about is in so many things now, we're using those connections as a way to make money.
Right.
One of the examples he used was, what is the purpose of Facebook? And
Right.
that's to monetize friendships.
Wait, let me see. Facebook is about monetizing
Friendships.
friendship.
In other words, the more friends that I can get in, the more people that are exposed to Facebook, the more people that are exposed to their advertising, and somebody's making big money off of that.
Somebody is making money off of
It
those.
reminds me of some of the network marketing plans where you suck in your friends first and you get your family involved.
Right.
And you know, you start making money off them. And he's talking about that same thing, getting them in and using them as a way you can make money and as a connection.
Right. So, buy this brand, use the brand I'm using, the advertising that comes along with the social.
Well, and you've been out
networking
there
stuff.
before, and you've seen them. I mean, it runs right down the side of the screen, and it's right
Oh,
there.
yeah. Well, I'm sure at some point this television station here at Columbus State University, I mean, in order to survive, maybe we're going to need funding. We're going
Yes,
to
we
need
are.
support. We're going to need people in the community to help us out. So I certainly understand that, but there is a trade-off that he's talking about.
Well,
I
we're going to be
understand
here doing our marathon fundraiser.
a
if we don't-
fundraiser.
yes,
Well, yeah, just
you know.
just like GP Public Television.
Yes,
those kind of
exactly.
things, right.
Bring on some
Okay.
guests. Okay, number
All right.
8,
All right.
fact. Tell the truth, because the truth will always come out when you're on the web. That you can't hide it. That if you keep
Oh, interesting.
making things up, including your identity, eventually it's going to come back to bite you, because the truth always comes out. So why not just start out with the truth?
All right. Well, I have no argument with that
Okay,
one
okay.
whatsoever. It
Okay.
sounds like that is telling the truth is just a good way to go. I mean, you don't have to remember so much when you tell the truth.
But you kind of taught this as a child,
That's
right?
right. That's
yeah,
right.
Exactly.
All right, so that's a command that he's talking about in this digital age. Start out by telling the truth. I think I'm with that.
And it goes along with that whole be yourself with your identity. Again,
right.
That's part of that truth. Number 9,
yes.
Openness. Share, do not steal. And
Share, do not steal.
And he was talking about such
it.
things as shareware,
right,
and open source
code software.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he was talking about how so many of the people today that are involved with technology don't do it for money, and they
right.
Create programs and they share. And I was thinking even of something that Kevin Kelly talked about in an article that Rushkoff recommended.
Okay.
And what Kelly talked about is how there's so much volunteerism on the web that people will go on. Well, and you've done it yourself. You've gotten on a discussion board with a problem, and 15 people give you suggestions what you could do. And I think that's an
that seems to be a pretty interesting idea. I mean, and share, don't steal. I mean, I know that we're talking about downloads when he's talking about that, and people illegal downloading and of software, movies, and music, and so forth and so on.
Which you can do with so
much.
But
But it seems to me that we've had this conversation that if you're a smart business person, that one of the ways that you can increase and begin to market your product is to give it away. Give away the free product in order to get people on board with your and a number of other people have done this.
Sure they have.
So you'll see that there's a free product. If you want the advanced version or the more bells and whistles on it, then you can pay for this premier level of these things.
It sounds like our iPads, doesn't it?
Well, it absolutely works in this
Yeah.
economy. It seems like this is working pretty well for us. So, and then the idea of openness, this idea that folks can share with each other important information. And that sense of community, I think, is a very important part. So I like number 9, this idea of openness in the digital age.
Well, we have so many people out there that have been stealing, so it's nice to try to encourage the other side of that, the sharing of information and the sharing of programs and books as well. And in fact, I thought of a book that was written by Cory Doctorow called Little Brother, talking about technology.
Right.
And it gave that book away for free. You could just
Wow.
go out and download it as a PDF file or as a Word file. And in fact, I used it in a class last spring, so because we were able to do that. But again, that's that sharing. That's that whole idea of we're community. So, and I like that part of it.
Okay.
Number 10.
All right, we're down to 10 already.
Yes, we
Go
are.
ahead.
Purpose. Program or be programmed. You can either make the software or you can be the software.
Wow. Now, let's talk about that for a minute.
Okay.
One of the things before we get into that, I know we have a piece of video that you brought into the studio here, and I know those guys have it available to us over there. So we want to take a look at some of the video around this notion from this book, Program or Be Programmed, 10 Commands for a Digital Age, by Douglas
or
Rushkoff.
religion or government or corporations. I am filled with the overwhelming sense that we are attempting to operate our society on obsolete code, on software, and I don't just mean our computer software, I mean our social software, on software that are basically legacy systems to legacies we don't even remember, and that they're completely inappropriate to what it is we want to get done. And that if we can't understand these programs, the programs in our computers in this world that we're spending a lot of our time in, then we don't stand a chance of even recognizing those programs. These programs are built on top of the old software. This helps that old software work. This is built on top of the economy. It's built on top of central banking. It's built on top of our current government structures. And if we can't see through this, then we'll never see that. I wanted to figure out how much of this is the bias of the medium. In other words, that we're in a binary medium, a plus, minus, discrete, you always have to make a choice medium versus an analog reality that has many colors and different things. How much is it the bias of the medium, and how much is it the biases of the people who programmed this media for us, who programmed our technology for us? And how do we even know which is which? How can we even tell them apart? And what I believe is that we won't know until we understand how our technologies work and how our technologies work on us. I do believe that if you are not a programmer, you are one of the programmed. It's that simple. You move from being a passive, almost a hearer of the game, not even, just a person who's in the game, doesn't even know the rules, what can be bent and what can't, to being a cheater, to being a writer, to being a programmer. Those are the stages our civilization has moved through in successive stages of media. We went from people who just lived in a world that had rules that we don't even know what they are. Maybe it's going to rain, maybe it's not. Maybe if I sacrifice my kid to Moloch, I'll get some plants this year, maybe I won't. People just randomly trying to find some predictability. Then we get text, right? We get the 22-letter alphabet. So now, instead of depending on priests to read everything for us in hieroglyphs, now we can make our own words. Then we get the printing press, which in theory now lets us, instead of depending on a few scribes, now anyone can write. And then we get the computer, which of course now makes anyone can program reality. Now that's not what actually happened, though. We got text, we got a 22-letter alphabet, and what kind of society resulted from that? A bunch of Israelites who go to the town square and hear the rabbi read the Torah to them. So we get the ability to read, or the technology of reading, and what ability do we get? The ability of the generation before. We get the printing press. Does everyone become a writer? No. We get a civilization of readers and an elite of writers. And now we get the computer. Do we get a nation of programmers? No. We get a nation of bloggers. Right? Now we've got the great ability to write, but we don't know how to program. We write in the box that Google gives us. My issue is that at each stage, when we get a new medium, civilization seems to be one stage behind, one generation, one iteration behind the medium that they're using, and an elite, maybe a new elite, learns to actually use the thing. And this one is bigger. Programming is even bigger, I would argue, than the printing press. It's as big as text. You know, text gave us Judaism, the printing press gave us Protestantism. What does this one give us? I think it's important, maybe less for the people in this room than for the people who aren't in this room or don't even know about this room, to be able to contend with the biases of digital media, to know that there are such things as biases, to be able to make conscious choices about what they use and what they don't.
You know, Jeff, it was a very interesting video.
I think it explains it pretty well.
Well, it does,
it does.
And I think we've kind of, we've covered a number of these 10 commands here with this notion of how we need to, and I guess the message is somehow we need to take charge of some of these, this technology that seems to be pushing us in one direction, controlling our lives, and make some choices about what we're doing with technology and how we're adapting to the technology as opposed to the technology adapting to us.
And we mentioned that earlier when we said it was, originally created to help us and make our lives better, and now we're almost slaves to it, and we're seeing the problems that way. And we just touched on it a little bit when we were talking about relationships.
Right.
And a lot of people are replacing normal relationships with Facebook relationships or social networking relationships. And that's one of the things he cautions against. And other authors have as well. I'm thinking someone like Sherry Turkle.
Right.
In her book, she talks about It's Alone Together, why we expect more from technology and less from each other. And
more from technology and less from each other. Well, it seems to be that technology can be sort of this defense, this wall that keeps us from really knowing other people and even knowing about ourselves, as we've talked about here. But it's a defense mechanism in some ways, and it's easy to do. I can stay behind my computer, and you never get to know me.
That's right. That's right.
Well, it's pretty fascinating commentary from these folks here, and I've enjoyed our conversation today about this. I mean, this is our first show with Talk with Mike and Jeff, and we're going to continue this in the studio here in the College of Education and Health Professions at Columbus State University. And Jeff, I want to thank you very much for this conversation today.
Thank you, Mike.
Well, I appreciate it, and I'm looking forward to doing more of this.
Great.
And if our viewers have some ideas of the things that we need to talk about and can bring up on the show, just let us know at shows@coehp.tv. We'd be happy to entertain that. We want to thank everybody for tuning in today, and we'll be here next week, each week, with Talk with Mike and Jeff. That's TMJ.
Once again. Yes.
Once again, that's TMJ. All right, thank you, guys. We'll see you next time.